Maya's hands trembled as she counted the coins scattered across her kitchen counter for the third time. $12.47. That was all she had until Friday, and it was only Tuesday night. She stared at the meager pile of quarters and dimes, feeling the familiar knot of anxiety tighten in her chest. Rent was paid, thank God, but groceries would have to wait. Again, the storm outside had intensified, rain hammering against her tiny studio apartment window like angry fists. Thunder rolled across the sky, and Maya pulled her threadbare sweater tighter around her shoulders. The heating in her building was unpredictable at best, and tonight seemed to be one of those nights where it had given up entirely. She grabbed her backpack and headed out into the deluge. The corner store was only 2 blocks away, and she needed something, anything, to eat before her interview tomorrow. This job at Sterling Enterprises could change everything. Executive assistant to the CEO, the salary alone would mean she could finally stop juggling 3 part-time jobs and focus on finishing her senior year. The rain soaked through her jacket within seconds. Maya kept her head down, navigating the flooded sidewalks by memory more than sight. That's when she almost tripped over him. A man sat huddled against the brick wall of a closed hardware store, tucked under a torn awning that provided almost no protection from the storm. His clothes were soaked through, his hair plastered to his face, and he clutched a worn backpack to his chest like it contained everything he owned. Which, Maya realized with a pang, it probably did. She stopped. People streamed past them on both sides, umbrellas bobbing, everyone rushing to get out of the rain. No one else even glanced at the man. "Sir?" Maya crouched down, rain streaming down her face. "Sir, are you okay?" The man looked up, and Maya was struck by his eyes. They were a clear, intelligent gray, seeming to take in everything about her in a single glance. He had to be in his 50s, with several days of stubble covering his jaw and deep lines around his eyes. "I'm fine," he said, his voice rough but oddly refined. "Thank you for asking." "You can't stay out here," Maya said, glancing at the darkening sky. "The weather alert said this storm is going to get worse. Do you have somewhere to go?" The man's expression flickered with something Maya couldn't quite read. Surprise, maybe? Or suspicion. "I'll manage." Maya made a decision that probably wasn't wise. Her mother would have called it reckless, but looking at this man shivering in the rain, she couldn't just walk away. "I live 2 blocks from here," she said. "It's not much, but it's dry and warm. You can wait out the storm there, please." The man studied her for a long moment. "You don't know me." "I know you're human and it's freezing and dangerous out here," Maya replied. "That's enough." Something shifted in the man's face. He nodded slowly and allowed Maya to help him to his feet. He was taller than she'd expected and moved with a careful dignity despite his bedraggled appearance. They walked in silence through the storm, Maya leading the way to her building. The elevator was broken again, so they climbed 3 flights of stairs, their wet shoes squeaking on the linoleum. Maya's hands shook slightly as she unlocked her door, suddenly aware of what she'd done. She'd just invited a complete stranger into her home. But when she looked at him standing in her doorway, dripping onto her welcome mat, she saw only exhaustion and gratitude. "It's small," Maya said apologetically, gesturing around her studio. The entire apartment could probably fit inside a standard bedroom. Her bed was pushed against one wall, her tiny kitchenette occupied another, and a desk piled with textbooks and her ancient laptop filled most of the remaining space. "It's perfect," the man said quietly. "Thank you. I'm Richard, by the way." "Maya?" She grabbed her only clean towel from the bathroom. "Here, dry off. I'll make us some tea." As Richard toweled his hair, Maya filled her electric kettle and surveyed her food supplies. 1 package of instant ramen, half a loaf of bread, 3 eggs, some margarine, the cookies she'd been saving for after her interview tomorrow. She dumped the ramen into a pot, added the eggs, and divided everything into 2 bowls. It wasn't much, but it was hot and it was food. "You didn't have to do this," Richard said, accepting the bowl with both hands. He'd removed his wet jacket, revealing a faded but clean shirt underneath. "You're my guest," Maya said simply, settling onto her desk chair while Richard took the only other seat, a rickety stool by the kitchenette counter. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The warmth of the food and the sound of rain on the windows created an unexpectedly cozy atmosphere. "So Maya," Richard said eventually, "what's a kind soul like you doing in a place like this?" Maya laughed. "Long story. College student, senior year. Parents died in a car accident when I was 19. No other family. Scholarship covers tuition, but not living expenses, so I work 3 jobs and try to keep my head above water." She hadn't meant to share so much, but something about Richard's attentive silence invited honesty. "I'm sorry about your parents," Richard said, and his sympathy sounded genuine. "That's a heavy burden for someone so young." "It is what it is," Maya said, then brightened. "But things might be looking up. I have a job interview tomorrow, a real job, not retail or food service, executive assistant at Sterling Enterprises." Richard's expression didn't change, but Maya thought she saw something flash in his eyes. "Sterling Enterprises? That's impressive. What do you know about the company?" "Tech innovation, corporate solutions, that kind of thing," Maya said, sipping her tea. "Honestly, I'm more nervous about meeting the CEO. Richard Sterling. Everyone says he's brilliant but intense, really high standards." "Is that so?" Richard asked, a slight smile playing at his lips. "And that doesn't intimidate you?" "Terrifies me," Maya admitted. "But I'm good at what I do. I'm organized, I'm detail-oriented, and I care about people. That has to count for something, right?" "It counts for more than you might think," Richard said softly. He looked around her small apartment, taking in the textbooks, the carefully organized desk, the secondhand furniture that had been cleaned and maintained with obvious care. "You've built a good life here, on your own terms." "I try," Maya said. She grabbed the package of cookies from her shelf and split it between them. Not exactly gourmet, but dessert is dessert. Richard took a cookie, and for a moment he looked almost sad. "When was the last time someone just offered you a cookie? No agenda, no expectation of anything in return?" "I don't know," Richard said honestly. "It's been a very long time." They talked for another hour. Richard asked thoughtful questions about her studies, her goals, her dreams. He listened in a way that felt rare and precious, as if every word she said mattered. Maya found herself sharing things she hadn't told anyone, dreams of maybe starting a nonprofit someday, of helping other kids who'd lost their parents navigate the system. Eventually, Maya glanced at the clock. "I should let you sleep. I have an air mattress you can use, and I'll find you some dry clothes." "Maya," Richard said, standing. "Thank you. You didn't have to do any of this." "Of course I did," Maya said, confused. "What else would I do? Leave you in the storm?" Richard looked at her for a long moment. "You'd be surprised how many people would do exactly that." Maya set up the air mattress and gave Richard a pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt from her ex-boyfriend's box of left-behind clothes. She retreated to her bed, pulling the curtain she'd rigged up for privacy. As she lay in the darkness, listening to the storm and Richard's quiet breathing across the room, Maya felt oddly at peace. Tomorrow would bring her interview, her chance to change her life. Tonight she'd help someone who needed it. That had to mean something. When Maya woke at 6 a.m., Richard was already gone. The air mattress was deflated and folded neatly, the borrowed clothes washed and hung on her drying rack. On her kitchen counter sat a note written on the back of a receipt. "Thank you for seeing me. You're going to do wonderfully today. Trust yourself. R." Maya smiled, touched by the gesture, and hoped Richard was somewhere safe and dry. 3 hours later, Maya stood in the gleaming lobby of Sterling Enterprises, feeling completely out of her depth. The building was all glass and steel, soaring ceilings and expensive art. Everyone who passed her wore designer suits that probably cost more than her entire semester's tuition. She smoothed down her interview outfit, a black blazer and pants she'd found at Goodwill, and a white blouse she'd ironed 3 times that morning. It would have to do. The HR director, a polished woman named Jennifer, greeted her with a professional smile. "Maya Chen? Welcome. We're so pleased you're here." The next hour was a blur of paperwork, facility tours, and introductions to various department heads. Everyone was friendly but clearly assessing her, measuring her against some invisible standard. "Now," Jennifer said, leading Maya toward a bank of elevators, "I'll take you to meet Mr. Sterling. He's very particular about his executive assistants. He doesn't just want someone who can manage his calendar. He wants someone with real character, someone authentic." Maya's stomach churned with nerves as they rode the elevator to the top floor. The executive level was quieter, more refined. Thick carpets muffled their footsteps. Original artwork lined the walls. Jennifer stopped outside a heavy wooden door. "Ready?" Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Jennifer knocked and opened the door. "Mr. Sterling, Maya Chen is here." Maya stepped into the office and her entire world tilted sideways. Standing behind an enormous desk, wearing an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, clean-shaven and looking every inch the powerful CEO, was Richard, the homeless man from last night. The person she'd fed ramen and given cookies to. The man who'd slept on her air mattress. Their eyes met. Maya's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Hello, Maya," Richard Sterling said, his voice carrying that same refined quality she'd noticed last night, now making perfect sense. "Please have a seat." Jennifer looked between them, clearly confused by the tension. "Mr. Sterling, should I—" "That will be all, Jennifer. Thank you." As soon as the door closed, Maya found her voice. You were— I don't understand." "I can explain," Richard said gently, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Maya's legs felt weak. She sank into the leather chair, her mind racing. He'd been testing her, playing some kind of game. She felt humiliated, angry, confused. "For the past month," Richard began, sitting on the edge of his desk rather than behind it, "I've been spending time on the streets. In disguise, if you want to call it that. Watching how people interact with those they perceive as beneath them." "Why?" Maya managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. Richard's expression softened with something that looked like pain. 6 months ago, my wife died. Sarah. She was a social worker, spent her entire life helping people that society overlooked. And in her final weeks, as I sat by her hospital bed, she told me something that I haven't been able to forget. He paused, looking out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below. She said, "Richard, you've built an empire, but you've lost your humanity. You're surrounded by people who want things from you, who perform for you, who tell you what you want to hear. You don't know what real kindness looks like. Anymore." Maya felt her anger cooling slightly, replaced by a deep sadness for this man who clearly loved his wife very much. "She was right," Richard continued. "I realized after she died that I couldn't name a single person in my life who saw me as just a person. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the guy who could do something for them. Just me." "So you pretended to be homeless," Maya said slowly, "to see if anyone would help you when you had nothing to offer them." "Yes," Richard said simply. "Last night was my 34th night out there. Do you know how many people stopped before you?" Maya shook her head. "None. 14 people passed me before you came along. You were the first person in over a month who stopped, who looked at me like I was a human being, who invited me into your home. You shared food you could barely afford. You gave me your only towel, your only cookies. You didn't just offer charity, Maya. You offered dignity." "But this job," Maya said, her voice breaking slightly. "You're only hiring me because of last night, not because I'm qualified." "That's not true," Richard said firmly, moving to sit in the chair beside hers rather than across from her. "I've reviewed your resume extensively. Your academic record is outstanding. Your references from your previous supervisors all describe you as exceptional. You're overqualified for this position, if anything." "Then why the test?" Maya asked, frustration bleeding into her voice. "Why not just interview me like a normal candidate?" Richard leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. "Because I've had 12 executive assistants in the past 5 years. All brilliant, all highly qualified, all terrible at the job. Do you know why?" Maya waited. "Because they saw the job as a stepping stone. They didn't care about the work or about me as a person. They cared about the title, the salary, the networking opportunities. I need someone who sees people, Maya. Not positions, not opportunities. People." "That still doesn't make this okay," Maya said, standing abruptly. "You manipulated me. You let me share personal things about my life, about this job interview, while lying about who you were." "You're right," Richard said, and the immediate acknowledgement surprised her. "I'm sorry. That wasn't fair to you. But I'm not sorry I met you, and I'm not sorry I saw who you really are when you thought no one important was watching." Maya paced to the window, looking out at the city she'd struggled to survive in for the past 3 years. Below, people rushed along sidewalks, everyone chasing something. Money, success, recognition. "I have to think about this," she said finally. "This is all too much." "Take the weekend," Richard said. "The job is yours if you want it. But I won't pressure you. If you decide this isn't right, I'll write you a recommendation letter that will open any door in the city." Maya turned to look at him. "Why me, really? And don't give me the line about kindness and character. There has to be more." Richard was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw with emotion. "Last night, when you split those cookies with me, you apologized that they weren't gourmet. Do you remember what I asked you?" Maya nodded slowly. "I asked, When was the last time someone offered me a cookie with no agenda? And I couldn't remember, Maya. I couldn't remember the last time someone shared something with me just to be kind. My wife has been gone for 6 months, and I felt more alone than I ever have in my life. And then you appeared in the middle of a storm and treated me like I mattered. His voice cracked slightly. That's not a small thing. That's everything. Maya felt tears pricking her eyes. She understood loneliness. She'd lived with it since her parents died. I need time, she repeated. Of course, Richard said. Whatever you need. Maya left the office in a daze. As she rode the elevator down, she caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. She looked the same as when she'd entered the building, but everything felt different now. She spent Friday and Saturday agonizing over the decision. Part of her wanted to turn the job down on principle. Richard had deceived her, even if his intentions were complicated, but another part of her, the part that had connected with him over ramen and cookies, understood what he'd been searching for. Sunday morning, Maya made her decision. She called the number Jennifer had given her and left a message accepting the position. Her first week at Sterling Enterprises was brutal. The office gossip started immediately. Maya could feel eyes following her through the halls, could hear the whispered conversations that stopped when she approached. She gave him dinner and landed a 6-figure job. Must be nice. How long do you think the CEO's charity case will last? I heard she pretended to be poor to get sympathy. The worst was Victoria Chen, the VP of Operations, a woman in her 40s with ice in her veins and a reputation for eating junior employees alive. She cornered Maya by the coffee machine on her 3rd day. So you're the one, Victoria said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass, the girl who passed the boss's little test. I'm just here to work, Maya said evenly, though her hands shook slightly as she poured her coffee. We'll see, Victoria said. I give you 2 months before you realize you're in way over your head and quit. Richard's going through a phase, playing at being humble and human. It won't last. He'll realize he needs real professionals, not some college student he picked up off the street. Maya felt anger flare in her chest, but she kept her voice level. I guess time will tell. What made it worse was that Richard seemed to be keeping his distance. He was professional, cordial, but he didn't give her any special treatment. If anything, he held her to higher standards than anyone else. He questioned her reports, asked her to redo presentations, pushed her harder than seemed fair. By Thursday, Maya was exhausted and demoralized. She'd been staying late every night, arriving early every morning, trying to prove herself to people who'd already decided she didn't belong. That's when the real crisis hit. Friday afternoon, Victoria burst into Richard's office where Maya was organizing his schedule for the following week. We have a problem. Harrison Technologies is threatening to pull out of the merger. Richard looked up sharply. What? The contracts were supposed to be signed today. James Harrison called me directly, Victoria said, her face tight with stress. He says he's having second thoughts, something about corporate culture misalignment. He's getting cold feet. Did you try to reassure him? Richard asked, already reaching for his phone. He's not taking my calls. Not taking yours either, apparently. He's gone radio silent. Maya watched the exchange, her mind racing. She remembered something from earlier in the week. Harrison had called the office Tuesday morning, and Maya had answered. He'd been friendly, chatty even, talking about his daughter who was applying to colleges. She'd spent 15 minutes helping him brainstorm essay topics because he'd seemed stressed about it. Mr. Sterling, Maya said quietly. Both Richard and Victoria turned to look at her, clearly having forgotten she was in the room. Not now, Victoria snapped. The adults are talking. But Maya pushed forward. Mr. Harrison mentioned his daughter during our call on Tuesday. She's applying to MIT for environmental engineering. He said she wanted to work on sustainable technology solutions. Richard's eyes sharpened with interest. Go on. The merger focuses entirely on profit optimization and market expansion, Maya continued, gaining confidence. But Harrison Technologies has a small green energy division that's not even mentioned in our proposal. What if the culture misalignment he's worried about is that we don't share his daughter's values, or his values, reflected through her? Victoria scoffed. That's ridiculous. This is a billion-dollar merger, not a family therapy session. But Richard was already pulling up files on his computer. Maya, that green energy division, how much do you know about it? I researched all of Harrison's subsidiaries when I was preparing your briefing materials, Maya said. It's small, barely profitable, but they've developed some interesting patents on solar panel efficiency. The research is solid, just underfunded. Richard looked at her with something like wonder. If we restructured the merger to highlight how Sterling could scale their green technology while Harrison's team maintains creative control, he'd see us as partners in his vision, not just opportunists buying his company, Maya finished. Victoria looked between them, her expression sour. Fine. But who's going to pitch this? Harrison won't take our calls. I'll call him, Maya said, surprising herself. Absolutely not, Victoria said immediately. You're an assistant, not a negotiator. But Richard was watching Maya carefully. Why do you think he'd take your call? Because I'm the only person in this office who talked to him like a person, not a deal, Maya said. He told me about his daughter's college essays. He showed me pictures of his grandkids. I'm not a threat. I'm someone who listened. Richard handed her his phone. Make the call. Victoria looked apoplectic, but she said nothing as Maya dialed Harrison's personal cell number, which she'd saved in the contact database. He answered on the third ring. If this is another Sterling executive, I'm not interested. Mr. Harrison, this is Maya Chen. We spoke Tuesday about your daughter's MIT application, Maya said, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her. I'm not calling to pressure you about the merger. I'm calling because I think we got it wrong, and I want to make it right. There was a long pause. Then, I'm listening. Your daughter wants to save the world, Maya said, and your green energy division is her inheritance, whether she works there or not. It represents everything you've built beyond just profit. Our proposal didn't honor that. We treated it like an afterthought. Yes, Harrison said quietly. That's exactly right. What if we restructured the entire merger around accelerating that division? Maya said, the idea crystallizing as she spoke. Sterling has the capital and the distribution network. You have the innovation and the values. We could build something that makes your daughter proud, that maybe even changes how the tech industry thinks about sustainability. Who are you, really? Harrison asked, and Maya could hear the smile in his voice. Because you don't sound like any executive assistant I've ever met. I'm someone who believes businesses should care about more than quarterly reports, Maya said honestly. I'm someone who thinks your daughter's dreams matter, and I'm someone asking you to give us one more chance to show you we can be the partner you deserve. Another long silence. Then, have Richard call me tomorrow morning. We'll talk. The line went dead. Maya lowered the phone, her hands shaking from adrenaline. Richard was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Victoria had gone pale. I'll draft the revised proposal tonight, Richard said quietly. Maya, I'll need your help. Of course, Maya said. Victoria stood abruptly. This is highly irregular. She's been here less than a week and you're letting her redesign a billion-dollar merger? She just saved a billion-dollar merger, Richard corrected, and she did it by doing exactly what I hired her to do. She saw a person, not a transaction. Victoria left the office, slamming the door behind her. Richard and Maya worked until midnight, rebuilding the proposal from the ground up. As they worked, some of the artificial distance between them dissolved. They fell into an easy rhythm, Maya researching while Richard drafted, both of them fueled by terrible office coffee and a shared sense of purpose. Why did you really take this job? Richard asked around 11 p.m., during a break to rest their eyes from the computer screens. Maya considered the question. Honestly, I almost didn't. I was angry about the deception. But I remembered something my mom used to say, Maya said softly. She said the world was full of people who needed help and people who could help, and the tragedy was that they so rarely found each other. I thought maybe you and I found each other for a reason. Richard was quiet for a moment. Sarah would have liked you. Your wife? He nodded. She was like you, fierce and kind in equal measure. She never let me get away with anything, but she also never gave up on believing I could be better. I'm not here to fix you, Maya said gently but firmly. I'm here to do a job. I know, Richard said, but maybe we can help each other be better at our jobs, better at being human. They finished the proposal at 1 a.m. Richard called Harrison at 9 the next morning. By noon, the merger was back on, restructured exactly as Maya had suggested. The office reaction was immediate and divided. Some people started treating Maya with grudging respect. Others doubled down on their resentment. Victoria didn't speak to her for 2 weeks, but Maya kept her head down and did the work. She anticipated Richard's needs before he voiced them. She caught errors in reports that would have been embarrassing. She handled difficult clients with grace and difficult employees with firmness. She earned every dollar of her salary through sheer competence and dedication. 6 months passed. The whispers didn't stop entirely, but they changed. She actually knows what she's doing. Did you see how she handled the Chen account? Richard seems happier lately. It was a Friday evening long after everyone else had gone home, when Richard finally addressed the elephant in the room. Maya was packing up her desk when he emerged from his office looking tired but content. Do you have a moment? They sat in his office, the city lights twinkling below them. 6 months ago, this moment had felt like an interrogation. Now it felt like a conversation between colleagues, between friends. I owe you an apology, Richard said. A real one, not the corporate version I gave you when we first spoke. Maya waited. I was drowning after Sarah died, he said, his voice raw. I was so lonely that I created an elaborate test to find someone who might give a damn about me as a human. That wasn't fair to you. It wasn't fair to reduce your kindness to a job interview. No, it wasn't, Maya agreed. But I understand it better now. Grief makes us do strange things. You've exceeded every expectation I had, Richard continued. The Harrison deal, the Chen account, the way you've mentored the new interns. You've transformed this office, culture in ways I didn't think possible. I'm just doing my job, Maya said. No, Richard said firmly. You're doing exactly what Sarah said I needed. You're keeping me honest. You challenge me when I'm wrong. You celebrate with me when things go right. You treat me like a person, even now that you know I'm the CEO. He pulled out a folder and handed it to her. I want you to consider a promotion. VP of People and Culture. It's a new position. I need someone who understands that businesses are made of humans, not just profit margins. Maya opened the folder, scanning the job description and salary. The number made her gasp. Richard, I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, he said. You've earned this, Maya. Not because you were kind to a stranger in a storm, because you're exceptional at what you do. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. 6 months ago, she'd been counting coins and eating ramen. Now she was being offered a vice presidency at one of the most prestigious companies in the country. I'll think about it, she promised. 1 year later, Maya stood in the conference room of Sterling Enterprises, addressing a room full of new hires. As VP of People and Culture, she'd revolutionized the company's approach to recruitment and employee welfare. They now offered childcare subsidies, mental health resources, and a program that specifically hired talented people from underserved communities. At Sterling, Maya told the nervous new employees, we believe that character matters as much as competence. That kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. That seeing each other as humans, not just colleagues, makes us all better at what we do. In the back of the room, Richard watched with pride. The company had thrived under their partnership. Profits were up, but so was employee satisfaction. They'd been named one of the best places to work in the country. After the orientation, Richard found Maya in her office, which was now just down the hall from his. Another successful batch, he said, settling into the chair across from her desk. You know, I've been thinking about that night, the storm. What about it? Maya asked, looking up from her computer. I spent a month on those streets looking for one kind person, Richard said, and I found you. But you weren't just kind that night. You're kind every day to everyone. That's not luck. That's who you are. You're getting sentimental in your old age, Maya teased. Maybe, Richard admitted, but I want you to know something. That night I was testing you to see if you were good enough to work for me. But what actually happened is you showed me the kind of person I needed to be. You didn't just pass my test, Maya. You taught me that the test itself was wrong. Maya felt her throat tighten with emotion. We taught each other, she said softly. You taught me that I was worth more than I believed. That my kindness wasn't naivety, it was strength. To teaching each other, then, Richard said, raising his coffee cup. To teaching each other, Maya echoed. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her here. A storm, a stranger, a chance encounter that changed everything. She'd learned that kindness was never wasted, that authenticity was the rarest commodity in a world of performances, and that sometimes the people we help end up helping us even more. And she'd learned that home wasn't a place. It was the people who saw you, really saw you, and valued what they found. Outside her window, rain began to fall. Gentle this time, not the angry storm of a year ago. Maya smiled, remembering a night when she'd shared ramen and cookies with a stranger who became her boss, her mentor, her friend. Sometimes, she thought, the best things in life come from the simplest acts of humanity, from seeing someone in need and deciding that their comfort matters more than your convenience, from treating every person like they have value, regardless of what they can do for you. That was the real test. Not the one Richard had designed, but the one life gives us every day. Will you choose kindness when no one's watching? Will you choose humanity when it costs you something? Maya had chosen yes, and in doing so, she'd found not just a job, but a purpose. Not just a boss, but a person who saw her as she truly was and celebrated it. And that, she thought, was worth more than all the success in the world. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales of kindness, second chances, and unexpected connections. Drop a comment below telling us about a time you helped a stranger, or tell us what you think Maya should do next in her journey. Your stories inspire us to keep bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of this community.